Hi, today I'm going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. The first question is best book you've read so far in 2019. So I feel like I was pretty conservative with my answer. I've got 4. The first is Woman on the Edge of Time by Marge Piercy, which is a sci-fi utopian book, and it explores the future. It also explores psychiatry and violence. It's a very intense, difficult book, but it's also kind of amazing. It's like a sci-fi feminist classic, and it was published in like the 70s or something. But it's about this woman called Connie, who is a psychiatric patient. She's like sectioned, and she has a connection with some people in the future, and it's about that. Then I've got some poetry by Layli Long Soldier called Whereas, which is an amazing collection. I think quite difficult to synthesize, but it's a lot about language and bodies and pain. And the writer, Layli Long Soldier, is a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe, so it's a lot about indigeneity. I think it's a difficult collection to describe really, but I found it to be really, I guess, like enthralling, and the way the poems was very bodily in a way, and also kind of full of like a yearning as well. I think there's some themes of like care and a little bit about motherhood as well running through, and also a kind of anger at the settler colonialism and the genocide that happened when white people went to America and just stole and stole and stole. And there's a really long poem called Whereas, and then there's also like a bunch of different poems leading up to it, which kind of threw me off a bit at first, I guess. But it's all part of painting this picture and this landscape that is full of a lot of different things, and I think it's really worth spending like time with, even if it takes a long time to kind of understand, or you need to reread, or you need to just like sit with the poems a bit longer than you might normally expect to. Then there's 2 novels by Sarah Moss. One is Ghost War, which is a novella that was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I think should have been shortlisted, but it's about Sylvie, a teenage girl. I think she's maybe 13, and she goes on a like university sort of trip where they do what's it called, experimental archaeology, where they live like they're in the Iron Age for a week or something in the summer. It's set in the 80s or so. There's like domestic violence and like familial violence in this. I just thought it was really, really good. It got kind of inside of me, and it made me feel like both happy and sad, and there's lots of it that I found kind of relatable in terms of growing up. I kind of want to reread it. I think the way the novel like follows itself is sort of interesting, because things escalate even though maybe it's not that realistic, but it makes sense within the confines and the tensions and the just like haziness and heat of the holiday and the time slip almost. The second one by Sarah Moss is Night Waking, which is an amazing book. It's a kind of the loose beginning of a trilogy, kind of. It's about a historian called Anna, which is my name, and it's about her, and she's a mother, and she has 2 babies, or 2 kids, and her partner is kind of useless, and it's just sort of about their life. It's like, I'm so bad at like explaining what books are about. Okay, I'm just gonna read a bit on the back. Anna is haunted by the discovery of a baby skeleton in the garden of their house. They live in this like uninhabited Scottish island for the summer, like Anna and her husband, and she's like trying to like write her own academic work, but she's also trying to look after her children, one of whom is a toddler, the other who's 7. Her toddler can't sleep, or at least like he wakes up with nightmares all the time. And so that's sort of what the night waking comes from. There's just such tenderness as well as like upset in this book about the lack of care that Anna gets and needs. I just really liked it, and I really like things about motherhood. Its lens is still, it is a bit exclusive. There's a different word but I can't think of it, but it still manages to be like captivating, like the way that like it's sort of a couple steps away from like the Marxist feminism I know that it could get to, and I would definitely recommend it to people, especially if you have experience with insomnia. Obviously like getting up for somebody else is different, but the way that like being awake at night is described I found to be a really nice like antidote to loneliness at some point, and because I think insomnia is a really like isolating and lonely making experience, as well as just like sometimes it can be like a really nice space of grace to like reflect by yourself. Oh, I'll try to be shorter on the other question. Second question is best sequel you've read so far in 2019, and for me that would definitely be The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I thought it was better than the first book, and I gave the first book 5 stars. Yeah, it just develops like the things that you want it to develop. Third question is new release that you haven't yet read but want to, and I'm gonna pick Hard to Love by Briellen Hopper. Supper, which is a collection of essays. I first found out about the author from a book review that she did all about like spinsters by Kate Bollick or something, I can't remember, and the kind of like ridiculous fallacy of it, but also it was like this love letter to spinsterhood and to spinsters, and it was just really beautiful. I'm gonna leave it down below if I can find it. The fourth question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I'm choosing Exquisite Cadavers by Mina Kandasamy, which comes out around November, I think. I loved Mina Kandasamy's other book, When I Hit You, which I read last year. I'm just excited to check out more of her work. Question 5 is biggest disappointment. I'm gonna pick Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars, One Trans Girl's Confabulous Memoir by Kai Cheng Tom. And it's not necessarily that it was like a bad book, it's just I had my hopes up for it for like a couple years now, and when I finally got to it, it just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Sixth question is biggest surprise. I guess one that I didn't think I was gonna like as much as I did was The Arrival of the Missives by Elia Whiteley, and this is a short story. It's set in after the First World War in a small like English village, and it's kind of like a sci-fi story. Question 7 is favourite new author, debut or new to you, and I'm going to pick new to me. I think you can probably tell from having already watched this video who it's going to be, and that's Sarah Moss, who wrote Ghostfall and Night Waking Ghostfall, and whose book Bodies of Light I'm currently reading, which is like supposedly kind of a loose follow-on from this. Mine is newest favourite character, and I'm going to pick Sophie Horowitz from the Sophie Horowitz Story by Sarah Schulman, which is a really fun book and just a really great like quick summer read, a lot about like what it's like to be on the left and like writing feminist newspaper stories, and Sophie Horowitz is a very relatable person. She's 24 and I'm 23, and she's a little bit lost in some parts of her life, and I totally get that, you know. Number 10 is book that made you cry. I mean, I feel like most of my favourite books I cry at because that's how I express most of my emotions. But I guess for one I would pick that I maybe wasn't expecting to cry that much at, I would say Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. That book is quite a big roller coaster, and at the end when it was finished I cried quite a lot. Question 11 is a book that made you happy, and I'm going to pick 2. I've talked about both of these already. The first is Terry Pratchett's Weird Sisters, which is a Discworld novel. It's about Nanny Ogg, Granny Weatherwax and Magrat, and they're fun together, I guess. It's also kind of like a Macbeth retelling in a way. It's very funny and it's very full of puns. And then the second one I want to mention for a book that made me happy is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I just enjoyed the whole process. I enjoyed reading this and like how large it is, and I enjoyed most of the characters, and I just enjoyed the world. It was just a really fun book to escape into for the 2 weeks or so that I was reading it. Question number 13, what's your favourite video you've done so far this year? I guess if I were to choose, I would say the video I made about night waking and a bit about my insomnia too. Question number 14 is most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. There's definitely lots to choose from, but I'm just going to choose this one, which I haven't read yet. The Tiger Flew, a novel by Larissa Lai. I just think the cover is really gorgeous, and like just all of it, like I love like the orange. I just think it's really beautiful and I'm really excited to read it. It also ties into the last question, which is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? One of them is definitely this one. Another like massive book I need to finish is Hilled by Nicola Griffith, which I'm about halfway through now. Then we've got my 2 Sarah Schulmans for July and August, which is Rat Bohemia and The Cosmopolitans. I don't know which way round I'm going to read them yet, but these need to get done before the end of the year, definitely. I'm trying to read 100 books this year, so I guess I gotta read at least 50 more. That's it for the tag, and that's it from me. I hope you have a lovely day whenever you watch this, and I will talk to you later. Bye!